Greetings, everyone. This is the Gardening Snail of Livingston, California, just trying to keep the community informed and simplify things as much as possible. In this video, we will be looking at what is on the agenda for the September 12th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission meeting is set to begin at 7 p.m. on Tuesday the 12th. People are encouraged to participate in the meeting via teleconference by calling 520-525-8911. Additionally, the regular meeting will be streamed on YouTube Live. During public comment time, any person may comment on any item that is not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record. While the Planning Commission encourages participation from the audience, no more than 5 minutes are allowed per discussion item per person. Under public hearings, general plan amendment and tentative subdivision map for the Greenzone Industrial Business Park, a request to redesignate the general plan description from Industrial Reserve to Limited Industrial and subdivide a 19.87 acre parcel into 22 lots and a stormwater basin lot. Here's an aerial view of where the Greenzone project will be located and the tentative site map. The project site is generally located on the west side of Bird Street where it turns north, approximately 0.4 miles west of the North Main Street Livingston Crestview Road and Bird Street intersection. There are 3 proposed actions. Pause to read at your leisure. The applicant, Greenzone Enterprises, LLC, is requesting a general plan amendment to modify the general plan land use designation of the subject property from Industrial Reserve to Limited Industrial and a tentative subdivision map to subdivide the 19.87 acre property into 22 lots, ranging in size from 29,000 square feet to 63,436 square feet, and an additional lot dedicated to a stormwater retention basin and future city well. The subdivision will also include private and common lot for the private interior roadway of the project site. Required improvements will include improving Bird Street to half-width standards in conformance with the city standards and specifications, the development dedication of a city well site and connection to city water systems to serve the project site, the creation of a privately owned lot to serve as a stormwater retention basin, the development of a private road network for vehicular access to each proposed lot, realign a portion of the existing irrigation lateral to a new alignment along Bird Street. The development application scope has been amended from the original speculative cannabis business park with a master conditional use permit for non-retail cannabis businesses to a general industrial business park that allows all industrial users, including non-retail cannabis business that could be considered in the future on an individual application basis per each property. Under background, on October 22, 2019, the applicant applied for a tentative subdivision map, a site plan, and a design review application and an environmental review. The project would ultimately result in a secure, gated cannabis business park with future internal roads being privately owned and maintained. On May 18, 2022, a new applicant and owner, Greenzone Enterprises, submitted a new application to include a 1. Master conditional use permit for a cannabis business park, 2. A general plan amendment to redesignate general plan designation of the project site from Industrial Reserve to Limited Industrial, a site plan and design review application for a conceptual site plan, a tentative subdivision map, and proposed a phasing plan to implement the conditions of approval to allow development of the site over time as market conditions allow. The environmental assessment for the project was drafted in late 2022, and a draft initial study mitigated negative declaration was circulated for public review from January 20th, 2023 through February 26, 2023. The proposed general plan amendment, master conditional use permit, site plan and design review, and tentative subdivision map applications were scheduled to be considered by the Planning Commission on March 14, 2023. However, the city's legal counsel determined that the city's zoning regulations do not contain provisions to allow a cannabis business park for speculative development, and any cannabis application will have to apply for its individual cannabis permit, development agreement, and conditional use permit. As a result, consideration of the application was continued indefinitely. The applicant was advised to either propose an amendment to the zoning code or amend the project's applications. The applicant then elected to remove the master conditional use permit for a cannabis business park, along with the site plan and design review component in the project description. Shortly after, the city's legal counsel questioned whether the initial study mitigated negative declaration for the project, which was being modified to reflect an amended project description that removes the speculative cannabis business park concept, needed to be recirculated with the amended project description. On July 18, 2023, the city contracted with a new legal counsel, and in August 2023, the new city attorney determined that proposed amendments to the project description did not require recirculation, as the amendments did not reflect any new proposal that was not originally contemplated and evaluated by responsible and trustee agencies. Moreover, the initial study mitigated negative declaration contemplated both a cannabis business park and a tentative subdivision map for industrial uses, which is currently being proposed. The initial study mitigated negative dec has been amended to reflect that a speculative cannabis business park is no longer proposed, but an industrial business park and subdivision with M1 industrial uses is proposed for the project site. Future development of individual lots within the project area with M1 uses would be processed in the future and on an individual basis and under separate entitlement applications. The title of this project was changed to the Greenzone Industrial Business Park. Non-retail cannabis land uses may still be applied for in the M1 zone, but on an individual property basis. There are no applications for a cannabis permit, conditional use permit, or site plan and design review are being applied through the GPA and TSM applications. On August 8, 2023, the Planning Commission conducted a scheduled public hearing, but the item was continued to the Planning Commission meeting of September 12, 2023. The public hearing notice for the September 12, 2023 Livingston Planning Commission was published on August 4, 2023, and on September 8, 2023. Notices were also mailed to property owners within 600 feet of the project site. The current request is to amend the general plan designation of the project site from industrial reserve to limited industrial to allow the development of M1 industrial land uses on the proposed lots. The 1999 general plan included the reserve general plan classification for lands not anticipated to develop within the 2020 timeframe of the 1999 general plan, but bore relation to the city's long-range planning. This reserve designation also denoted lands that possess urban service constraints within the 2020 urban growth boundary. Since the adoption of the 1999 general plan, the city has continued to grow in both developed areas and in population. It is appropriate for the city to consider development of industrial areas that are classified as being in reserve to accommodate development that will provide for increased job growth and commerce in the city. The general plan amendment includes the following language, which you can read at your leisure. The project site is located within the city limits and is zoned M1 Limited Industrial. Property that is located within the city limits is presumed to be able to receive some level of municipal services, police, fire, water, and sewer services. When utility services are not readily available, then development proposals are responsible for the extension and provision of these services. The development will be conditioned to pay development impact fees annexed to Community Facility District Number 2017-1 Urban Services and to extend city utilities to the project site before development can take place on the property. There are no development proposals or development applications associated with this at this time. All future development on each lot will be subject to its individual land use entitlement process, site plan and design review application, conditional use permit application. Moreover, any proposed development project description that is consistent with the uses identified in the project may be able to tear off of the environmental assessment prepared for this project when certain CEQA findings can be made. Again, the current applicant initially proposed a master conditional use permit and site plan to facilitate subsequent development of the proposed parcels with a variety of industrial uses, including non-retail cannabis uses. However, since the city's zoning ordinance does not presently contain provisions for the development of a cannabis business park, a master conditional use permit for a cannabis business park has been abandoned by the applicant. Presently, all cannabis permit applications have to complete a two-step process, an applicant background screening by the city police department and approval of a development agreement with the city, before a conditional use permit and site plan and design review application can be considered by both the Planning Commission and City Council. Each future development proposal will be considered individually and on its own merits, with conditions of approval to be applied on an individual application basis. The interior streets will be private and under a common lot. The proposed storm drainage basin lot is to remain privately owned and maintained subject to conditions, covenants, and restrictions and any applicable agreements. A water well site is also proposed to be constructed within the storm basin lot and interconnected with the city's water system, with the well site dedicated to the city. The existing Stoddard lateral that is proposed to be placed underground and a portion of the lateral relocated to a line along Bird Street. The tentative subdivision map is proposed to be developed in one phase, with the development on the lots occurring in 4 phases as determined by market conditions. Under issues, staff did not identify any issues with the proposed amendment to the general plan land use redesignation of the project site from industrial reserve to limited industrial. However, staff initially identified a number of issues with the tentative subdivision map which have either been addressed by the developer or will be addressed by conditions of approval. These issues include the following. An irrigation production water well was proposed. The map did not show any right-of-way dedication for Bird Street. Water and sewer connections for each of the lots, the storm drain basin, and the need to coordinate with the Merced Irrigation District requirements for the undergrounding of the Stoddard Lateral Canal traversing the project site, their easement conflicts with other city utilities, irrigation pipe improvements at both ends, etc. The developer will be required to install improvements for the provision of a public water system, a public sewer system, and a public storm drainage system prior to the issuance of the first building permit. The subdivision design incorporates privately owned subdivision improvements, which will require additional requirements. Project referral comments. The Merced County Department of Public Works Road Division submitted a letter requesting 2 conditions to be placed on the approval of the tentative subdivision map. Number 1, improve Bird Street from the intersection of Livingston Cressy Road going to the subject property. The second, the getting of an encroachment permit. Pacific Gas and Electricity also responded with 2 letters, citing the requirements for as it relates to gas and electrical facilities. MID submitted a response letter regarding the undergrounding of the Stoddard irrigation lateral. The city engineer responded with a memo with a list of recommended conditions of approval. Neighborhood concerns. Neighboring property owners have expressed concerns with potential impacts associated with a cannabis business operating on the project site, citing concerns with safety, trespassing, and increased traffic. However, a cannabis permit application is not being considered at this time. Various cannabis businesses activities may be permitted in the city's industrial zoning districts per the Livingston Municipal Code. Any request for cannabis activity will be considered separately from the current application. Other concerns expressed have been associated with the current upkeep of the property and trespassing from this property onto adjacent properties. Staff believes findings can be met as the subject site has been and will continue to be designated for industrial uses, not altering a change in the ultimate development character of the development for this area of the general plan. The project will be conditioned to maintain levels of service consistent with the city's ability to provide a reasonable level of service. The development of the project site with industrial uses will fulfill the general plan's adopted general plan designation of industrial uses for the project site. Staff believes the findings can be made due to the following reasons. You can go ahead and pause to read. The tentative subdivision map will necessitate the dedication and improvement of public streets since the project will increase activities in and around the project site and increase demands for roads and services, thereby requiring dedication and improvements. The property is zoned M1, limited industrial, and no development projects are proposed at this time. Future development on any of the lots will be subject to the city zoning regulations as it relates to permitted, conditional, and prohibited uses. Development and performance standards for land uses in the M1 zoning district shall also apply to the project site. Non-retail cannabis uses will be subject to the city's cannabis provisions and subject to approval of a conditional use permit on an individual property basis. Again, no cannabis business proposals are requested with this application. The project description initially included evaluation of a cannabis business park with industrial uses and an industrial business park with only industrial land uses and a 22-lot subdivision. The project now proposes development of a 22-lot subdivision industrial business park for a variety of industrial land uses. 2 comments were received by the city, one from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and one from the California Department of Cannabis Control. A response to comments for the proposed project is included as an attachment. The project description was revised to remove the master conditional use permit and site plan and design review applications for cannabis uses and retitle the initial study mitigated negative declaration to the Greenzone Industrial Business Park. The proposed changes in the project description did not trigger a recirculation because the document was not substantially revised after the notice of availability. Amendments to the initial study mitigated negative declaration resulted in a name change and elimination of 2 proposed land use entitlements. No new mitigation measures are required or needed or proposed to be amended. There are no project revisions to the project's effects which are new, avoidable, significant effects. The amendments were merely to clarify insignificant modifications to the proposed mitigated negative declaration. Staff is recommending 3 Planning Commission resolutions. You can pause to read them here. Here's the list of attachments that went with the staff report. What I've done here is add the page numbers in the agenda packet where you can find these attachments. Here's where you can find attachments 1 through 6 and attachments 7 through 15. If you like what I do here, please follow me on Facebook and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, editorial content is my own as a long-term resident of Livingston and does not represent the views and opinions of the City Council or the City of Livingston itself, and does not hold itself out to be any kind of legal advice.